Larry, our a former colleague and mutual friend, Catherine Herridge, I think she's now at CNN. She's gone from Fox to CBS to CNN. God bless her. Is reporting that the CIA was monitoring every keystroke on every laptop, desktop, and mobile device of Tulsi Gabbard and her senior people. Is this out of the ordinary that the CIA would spy on its boss? Is she the boss of the CIA?
She's not really the boss of the CIA, even though she sits in a position where she's supposed to oversee the coordination of all the intelligence agencies. But the CIA still retains a lot of latitude. And, spying on the DNI, well, remember John Brennan spied on the Senate for heaven's sake. So, yeah, this is the CIA is an agency out of control with no accountability. And, however, I will note that at least the analysts in the last two briefings to Congress have gone against the administration happy talk about how they've obliterated Iran and Iran has been defeated and all of that nonsense. They've pushed back against that, it's unusual, as Ray knows, in a time of war. And both Ray knew, I think, George Allen much better than I did, but my senior, the instructor for my new analyst course was George Allen. He was the manager that oversaw Sam Adams. He was in charge of the analysis for the Vietnam War during the height of the Vietnam War. And he described the kind of pressure he came under at the time from not only Lyndon Baines Johnson, but from McNamara, the Secretary of Defense, George Bundy, the National Security Advisor. They're all calling him up, telling him to be a team player. Come on, tell the story. Tell what we need, what the policymakers want to hear. And, he admitted at the time that he had two kids in high school. They're getting ready to go to college, and he didn't feel like he could risk, pushing back too hard. Fortunately, he had Sam Adams, Sam, despite his enormous expertise, he spoke the Vietnamese language. He had been on the ground in Vietnam, but he had that kind of money that he was independently wealthy. So you know what? When you got that kind of money in your back pocket, it really helps you to be courageous. And Sam was a courageous man.
I'm thinking of what Tucker Carlson told me when I interviewed him about her, is that she has no money. She doesn't even own the home in which she and her husband live, and that she absolutely needed this job and its income and its benefits.
Yeah.
And for that reason wouldn't resign. Ray, does the CIA spy on the director of the CIA?
Well, not knowingly.
What does that mean? Not
that's
knowingly.
What James Clapper answered.
Clapper's
he was asked under oath whether the NSA and others spy on American citizens.
Right.
You can't. No secret is safe. When you put these tools in the hands of your people, you can't be confident that they accept you when they're collecting with this broad brush. So I think it's a problem, but not so much a problem as the fact that they're doing this together with NSA. NSA has the tools, has the more sophisticated intercept tools, and they have a certain charter to be able to intercept messages from Americans as long as there's a foreign source involved. And then, of course, the FBI. And you get them all together in what they call these fusion centers. And then all these rules go kaflooey. I mean, the CIA is not supposed to be in a fusion center collecting stuff on American citizens. So they, of course, give to the local police or to other enforcement agencies what comes out of these fusion centers. And then they have a special kind of trick that they play. It's called, what they do is they collect stuff illegally, and then they give it to the judge, or they give it to not the judge, but they give it to the prosecution. They say, okay, go after so-and-so in this corner on this night. It's and you'll get somebody. Now, that's I can't remember what it's called now, but it's given a sobriquet.
Parallel reconstruction.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
I'm
parallel
very familiar with that in law enforcement. So the
Now, I asked
prosecutor,
James Comey about that in person before a group of about 300 CIA alumni. I said, how do you explain that? And he said, I'm not familiar with the term.
oh God, he
And I
certainly
explained
is.
it at that time. And he said, well, after 9/11, we were given special authorities.
Catherine Harris reports the CIA was monitoring every keystroke on Tulsi Gabbard and her team's devices. Larry and Ray confirm this is par for the course with an agency that's gone rogue. Spying on Senate staff, running parallel reconstruction to launder illegal evidence, and operating with zero real accountability. Ray brilliantly breaks down parallel reconstruction, the dirty trick where illegally obtained intel gets fed into prosecutions while hiding the illegal source. James Comey once claimed ignorance of the term. Shocking? Not really. This is the deep state eating its own when it doesn't like the direction. Takeaway. The revelation that the CIA spies on the Director of National Intelligence reveals a captured agency operating as a law unto itself. Fusion centers, illegal data sharing, and parallel reconstruction create a surveillance state that bypasses constitutional protections. When agencies meant to serve the people instead serve entrenched power, democracy itself is under threat. This isn't partisan, it's institutional rot that has persisted across administrations. The courage shown by analysts pushing back on Iran happy talk, echoing Vietnam-era truth-tellers like Sam Adams, proves some still prioritize facts over favor. But at what personal cost? Subscribe to World Talk Recap and join our growing community of truth seekers who refuse to swallow the official line. Before we leave the domestic spy games, we pivot to the high-stakes international chessboard.
Larry, are Iran and the United States any closer to an agreement as the president claimed yesterday, or is he continuing to manipulate the equity and oil markets?
No, they're not closer to an agreement, despite claims to the contrary. I mean, look, Iran's positions that are set in stone, immediate sanction relief, return of frozen assets, and they're going to continue to control the Strait of Hormuz. Those are non-negotiable. The United States now wants to talk nukes, and Iran's made it very clear that they're not talking nukes. It is it's their sovereign right to enrich uranium, to possess uranium, because they're signatories to the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Until such time as anyone can show that they violated that, they're not going to submit to any kind of humiliation ritual from the United States. Now, that said, up to this point, Trump, I think, would have already launched a military attack against Saudi Arabia if it were not for a couple of things. One, the Saudis have prevented the United States from using its airspace. Initially, 3 weeks ago, when they put the kibosh on Project Freedom that was supposed to open the Strait of Hormuz. Now, we're on the eve of the Hajj. The Hajj is a religious requirement for all Muslims once in their life to make the journey to Mecca, and then to engage in a series of rituals that spread out over a 7-day period, in which they basically reenact the life and the holy acts of the Prophet Abraham. Abraham is known in Christian circles, and the Prophet Muhammad. So that starts Sunday.
Does that mean that there will be no violence during that time period?
Well, you mean by the United States attacking? Possibly. Yes. Except here's the disturbing, troubling element, data point. One, I know that U.S. military personnel that work in these crisis action teams, they've been told, it's a holiday weekend, but you better be prepared to be called into work. That's number one.
Meaning this holiday, meaning
Memorial Day. Memorial Day.
Hajj.
Yes. Well, the Hajj and Memorial Day coincide, which may be a tad ironic. But then on top of it, Donald Trump announced today he's missing his son's wedding this weekend because he's got to stay at the White House. That's not a good sign. That indicates that they're seriously contemplating some military action. I mean, he's not staying there because they need to review architectural plans for the greatest ballroom ever to be constructed. No, so this is It's just a question of how much attention is the United States going to pay to Iran. It's military operation. They can continue to conduct attacks on Iran via Iraq. They can overfly Iraq. That increases the risk to them, though, because it narrows the target window for Iranian air defense. But the fact that Trump said he's blowing off going to the wedding and he's staying in Washington, D.C., that's concerning.
Ray, do we know if the White House is receiving accurate analysis from CIA agents?
We know that the Washington Post and the New York Times leaked some of this accurate information. But to listen to Trump saying, there's only 19% of those missiles available to Iran before we went in there, what's left? And of course, CIA is saying, if you can believe what they're telling the Post and the Times, no, it's more like not 17, 18, it's more like 70 or 75% of those missiles. So Trump likes to talk off the top of his head, of course. If he really thinks this, then he's being deprived of the intelligence by a fellow named Rubio, who, as National Security Advisor, as well as Secretary of State, is the funnel through which all information on national security reaches the president. So if Rubio wants Trump not to know something, he can easily prevent it and mislead him in making Trump think that he knows something that isn't true. That's pretty the long and the short of it. I would like to add one thing here about why there's not likely, in my view, to be a renewal of the U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran. Both Putin personally and Wang Yi, the foreign minister of China, have said this is completely unacceptable. Now, their strategic relationship has never been closer and never more visible than over this past week, to the extent that Xi Jinping dispensed with his habits, and as Putin got on the plane, gave him a great big bear hug. Putin, you gotta watch this. Putin wasn't expecting us. Here, this way, huh? This way. Well, ironically, before he left, Trump said, I thought he's going to give me a great big hug. Well, he didn't get a big fat hug, but Putin did, almost as if to show, look, we're together. This other entity that doesn't respect the UN or international law, they're all by themselves. And the question is, when they go to the UN today, whether Russia and China will be as one, and whether the US itself will decry the attack on that little college where so many people were killed and injured earlier this morning in Lugansk.
Trump claims progress with Iran. Larry Johnson destroys that illusion. Iran's positions are rock solid: immediate sanctions relief, return of assets, and control of the Strait of Hormuz. No nuclear talks, period. Meanwhile, Trump skips his son's wedding to stay at the White House. U.S. refueling happens over Iraq, narrowing attack corridors and increasing risk. Saudi Arabia blocked airspace use, and we're on the eve of the Hajj, a major Muslim pilgrimage. Analysts are leaking that Iran retains 70 to 75% of its missile capability, contradicting Trump's victory narrative. Ray highlights China and Russia's united front against further aggression. Takeaway: the disconnect between public Trump statements and leaked intelligence assessments reveals dangerous wishful thinking. Iran's strategic patience, combined with shifting global alliances, Xi's bear hug with Putin, creates a multipolar check on U.S. power. Memorial Day timing, narrowed flight paths, and Trump's unusual schedule raise serious questions about potential escalation. History warns that ignoring accurate intelligence while chasing political narratives often leads to quagmires. The courage of analysts telling Congress the truth despite pressure is admirable, but administrations that punish reality create strategic blindness with real human costs. What's your prediction? Will Trump escalate before or after Memorial Day? Comment below and let's debate.
Talk about Raul Castro. So the CIA engages a terrorist plot to blow up a Cuban airliner. And the same characters years later are flying jets over Cuban airspace. They don't have permission to do it. They're told to turn around. They refuse. They're shot down, just like we would shoot down a plane that entered American airspace. Remember the balloon that taunted everybody until Biden finally shot it down? It taunted the whole country for 10 days. How can that be a crime? I know you're not a lawyer, Ray McGovern, but how can that be the basis for a prosecution when a defense minister is protecting his country from a plane filled with terrorists who refuse to get out of the airspace?
It can be a crime if you have total disrespect for any kind of law, international or domestic. It can be a crime if you want to get rid of the head of Cuba or the principal heads of Cuba, just so that you can strike your breast and say, look, we can do this in our own backyard. Witness what happened in Venezuela. It's the same sequence of events. It looks like they're out to do in the Cuban leadership. Why? Well, because they're a national defense kind of enemy and a threat to our national defense. Oh, give me a break. Who can believe that? Nobody. So this is Rubio, who's his favorite thing is to make sure the Cubans suffer. And my question here is, with Russia and China giving so much explicit endorsement to a way of following international law and accepting these things that are outside of, not accepting, but getting rid of these things that the U.S. has done, and they list a whole bunch of them, whether they will stand or sit by idly when this happens. There's a special relationship between Russians and the Cubans. This happened before, 1962. I don't know. I think the Russians might be willing to stick their necks out this time, particularly if Big Brother Xi supports the kind of trouble they can cause to get the U.S. to back off on Cuba.
Maybe Raul is already in Moscow, so Trump can't go to Havana and kidnap him. Larry, was it a crime for Barack Obama to use drones to kill Anwar Awlaki? Was it a crime for Donald Trump to use drones to kill General Soleimani?
Well, yes, but let me emphasize what's going on here. I've spoken to somebody who was actually involved with that Brothers to the Rescue operation. He described it as a deliberate CIA provocation, that the plane that was shot down didn't carry civilian markings. It actually had U.S. Air Force markings on it. Jeez. So it was deliberately trying to entrap the Cubans into doing this, which, they did, and they were justified under international law to do it. I saw firsthand us doing the very similar thing back in 1989 when I was with the Central America branch. The United States had been involved with a year-long covert action against Panama, where we were doing provocation after provocation, trying to get Manuel Noriega to do something, to shoot, kill American soldiers, to attack an American target. We didn't care about the victims. What we were looking for was, excuse me, a predicate that would then justify the United States carrying out an attack on Panama, which ultimately that's what we got. And that's what was going on here with Cuba.
The conversation shifts to the downing of planes over Cuban airspace, the same players previously involved in terrorist plots against Cuba. Ray and Larry see a pattern: Venezuela, Cuba, endless attempts to topple governments in America's backyard under the guise of national security. Rubio's hard line on Cuba gets special mention. The big question: will Russia and China sit idle as international law gets trampled again? Takeaway: this segment reveals the repetitive cycle of U.S. interventionism that ignores sovereignty and international norms. From historical plots against Cuban airliners to current airspace violations, the playbook remains consistent. When powerful nations disrespect smaller countries' airspace and leadership while demanding respect for their own, remember the Chinese balloon. Hypocrisy undermines global stability. Russia's historical ties to Cuba add another dangerous layer. As global power shifts toward BRICS-aligned nations emphasizing sovereignty, unilateral actions become increasingly risky and isolating. The willingness of intelligence veterans to call this out publicly is crucial for informed public discourse. Final question to spark discussion. If you had to choose, is America's greatest hour of danger right now, just like the opening Jefferson-inspired questions suggested? Drop your thoughts. Smash like if this breakdown fired you up, and subscribe to World Talk Recap for weekly deep dives with the sharpest minds. What segment hit you hardest? Let me know. Your engagement shapes the next one.